Tonight, we begin an exclusive four-part series here on 69 News, investigating a coal fire in Schuylkill County.
The underground mine fire in Centralia has been talked about for decades and made national news. Virtually everyone in the borough in central Pennsylvania had to be relocated. But tonight's story is about something different.
There's another fire that has people wondering whether Centralia is spreading underground toward their homes and businesses. 69 News reporter Rob Manch is here in the studio with part one of his series. Rob?
Yeah, that's right, guys. So it all started when a former photographer here at 69 News, Kaylee Lindenmuth, filed a right-to-know request with the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection about that reported mine fire 3 miles to the east of Centralia. So we got back a report confirming its existence, and then we decided to hike out there and see it for ourselves. And what we found was concerning to us, but I also learned it's concerning to people in the nearby borough of Shenandoah.
Centralia was more of a small crossroads town.
We begin at the site of the coal region's most famous mine fire, the borough of Centralia. Once home to more than 1,000 people, now has fewer than 10 houses, thanks to the coal region's most famous mine fire burning underground since 1962.
Today it is an odd ghost town.
Andy Ulickney, the Historical Society director in neighboring Shenandoah, remembers when it happened.
When they started weighing the cost versus the notion of let's just move everybody out, and they paid them, there were royalties, and this, they went with that direction. Just let it burn.
Today, there's no more visible smoke coming out of the ground in Centralia proper. But just to the east, we saw our first evidence that the fire is still very much active. This smoke is off of Big Mine Run Road, which is just outside Centralia in Columbia County. This location is the furthest point that investigators originally thought the mine fire had reached. But that was until 2004, when a mining company reported another mine fire several miles east of here. We obtained that report through a public records request. It identifies a different fire 3 miles to the east, just north of a town called Girardville, first discovered in 2004 by a mining company called Blashock Coal. At that time, investigators said, quote, the possibility the underground mine fire and the Centralia mine fire were related in some way was discussed. Additional field work and map analysis is necessary to make an accurate determination. Later in the report, it says, quote, Blashock plans to go ahead and remine the area and extinguish the underground mine fire. Therefore, we recommend no further action. It was time to see for ourselves if the fire had been dealt with. The hike into abandoned mine land wasn't easy, a terrain filled with swampy water, overgrown plants, and loose rocks. But after about a mile, we saw from a distance what we were looking for. Smoke rising straight out of the ground, covering an entire hillside, and continuing onto the back of the hill as well. The area was surrounded by dead vegetation. The fire had not been extinguished.
Huh. Wow. So any comment at all from the Blashock Coal people?
Yeah, that's right, Wendy. I did reach out to the company, but like I said in my story, I didn't get a response from Blashock Coal. But it's not really critical that I did, because even though Blashock reportedly discovered the fire, the DEP never gave them approval to dig it up. So at this point, the DEP tells us it has no idea how that second fire started. But right now, it's much more active in terms of smoke coming out of the ground, as you can see there, than Centralia is to this day. Now, in the next 3 parts of this series, I get answers from the DEP to learn what they actually do know about the Girardville fire, and I talk with people living in the closest neighborhood to it. Then I break down what solutions there are if the DEP ever wanted to do something about this thing. So we know that the coal underneath this area of land has been burning for at least 18 years. So we wanted to find out how far it extends underground and what's being done about it. We took our observations and questions straight to the DEP. In response, the agency said it has been monitoring the fire over the years and had, quote, no evidence at this time that the Centralia mine fire and the one north of Girardville in Schuylkill County are connected. But it also said it had no idea how the fire started and that monitoring had been limited to surface surveys with thermal imaging cameras. When we asked in a separate request for the results of any field studies conducted in the area, we were told there were no records of them. We also learned the DEP had never approved Blashock to dig up the fire. And finally, DEP told us it, quote, has no estimate as to how far the fire in Girardville has progressed. But on its website, the DEP does have an estimate on how far the Centralia mine fire could eventually progress. Created in 1983, this map predicted, if left unchecked, the Centralia fire was likely to spread along the Buck Mountain coal seam, splitting into two legs. When overlaid onto a satellite map, it shows one leg extending to the borough of Shenandoah. The other, larger leg, where the Girardville fire is located, dead ends at a tiny neighborhood called Raven Run. To understand the implications of this, we needed to talk to a geology expert.
It is true that they are all connected.
And pay a visit to Raven Run. The quiet neighborhood of Raven Run sits on top of a mountain just to the west of Shenandoah Borough.
There's not much road traffic here. The kids can play in the street. You have peace of mind when you're home.
Victor Marini has been living here for 6 years now. But like his neighbors we spoke with, he was completely unaware that just over a mile to the west of his front door, a coal fire is actively burning underground. Now, Marini's concerned his home is no longer safe.
I do believe that that mine fire will catch us at some interval.
We saw on DEP's own map from 1983 that the Centralia mine fire was considered likely at that time to eventually spread to the Raven Run neighborhood. Another map created by the DEP in 2012 shows a red dotted line around the edge of the fire, indicating it's unknown how far underground it spread. We took our questions about the mine fire to geologist Frank Pizzaglia at Lehigh University.
It's one of the legacies of the anthracite mining, and so it's an ongoing risk.
We showed Pizzaglia on a map of the region exactly where we found the Girardville mine fire and asked him what the likelihood is that it could have started in Centralia. He said the Centralia fire has been documented spreading before, but never as far as the fire in Girardville.
If you're trying to get it from here over to here, that's at least twice as far away. Now, that doesn't mean it can't, because, again, the distance that it goes depends on the speed of the combustion.
Pizzaglia pointed us to some natural barriers on a geological map that could prevent the fire from spreading underground, but he also says that's not the whole story.
Naturally, the seams are separated by enough sandstone or shale that the fire shouldn't be able to go. But what happens is you have a seam right here, you've got a seam right here, and then historically somebody put a mine tunnel in between those two.
That tunnel gives the fire a new pathway to travel underground, and that's exactly what has Marini so concerned.
There's a lot of unknown mine tunnels up there, and if this fire continues to spread, there's no way of knowing where those mine fires are going to take it, and how much bigger it can become.
Well, tonight we're bringing you the very latest in our exclusive 4-part series, Burning Coal Country.
We've shown you a fire burning underground in Schuylkill County, given you the state DEP's response, and talked with people who could one day be affected.
Now, 69 News reporter Rob Manch is taking a look at what can be done about it. He is live for us tonight in Shenandoah. And Rob, tonight's story focuses on that borough.
Yeah, that's right, Wendy. This is a town that is no stranger to mine fires. So I'm standing right now at the Pennsylvania Anthracite Miners Memorial. And in 1970, not far from where I'm standing, the Keeley Run mine fire was burning out of control, just like Centralia did back in 1962. I talked with Historical Society Director Andy Ulickney about what it took to put it out.
Shenandoah itself is pretty much the heart of the coal region.
Andy Ulickney preserves that legacy in the borough's Historical Society. It's filled with helmets, coal, and replicas of mining equipment.
We have a miner's helmet before electricity in the olden days.
But we learned if the Girardville fire ever did threaten Shenandoah, it wouldn't be the borough's first time. It's an experience Andy Ulickney lived firsthand.
All of a sudden, you're finding out over the years, vapors popping up surrounding the mine, vapors popping up surrounding the town. Sulfur is effusing and solidifying.
The mine fire Ulickney is talking about isn't in Centralia or even Girardville. It's the Keeley Run mine fire, right on the doorstep of Shenandoah Borough itself.
Over our Little League stadium, it was like a volcano. There was a crater you could drive trucks into. It was starting to burn under the north end of the town, and it would have continued. And this was a rather prosperous town of 15 to 20,000 people.
So in 1970, Pennsylvania made a decision. Unlike Centralia, it was going to save Shenandoah.
They moved a mountain, literally moved a mountain, and this was dug up over the course of 7 years, or the town would have been basically incinerated and falling into the ground.
An article published in the Evening Herald in 1977 quoted the figure at $12.9 million, which in today's dollars would be just under $100 million. Now, the Girardville mine fire is raging underground mere miles from the borough's borders. But if the state wanted to do something about it, there's no question the money is there.
The motion is adopted.
After the passage of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act in November of last year, the Pennsylvania DEP was granted $244 million a year for the next 15 years, specifically for abandoned mine reclamation. That's $3.6 billion in total. But Ulickney says they might not have to spend as much money digging up the fire like they did with Keeley Run.
But I'd like to think even if it is spreading, it might be spreading in tendrils that could be nipped off one by one. At least I would hope so before there'd ever be a problem to the town.
We asked geologist Frank Pizzaglia at Lehigh University about this, and he confirmed that is one way of extinguishing underground fires.
Part of the remediation effort is actually to drill holes and pump bentonite or other kinds of materials into the holes to artificially make these kinds of barriers.
But in order to pull off a project like that, the first step is figuring out how far the Girardville fire extends underground, something the DEP has admittedly not done yet. Victor Marini, who lives in Raven Run, the closest neighborhood to the fire, hopes the state takes action.
I think there needs to be survey work done out there. It's neglect.
Like the Centralia fire, neglected 60 years ago, 6 miles away. Ulickney is afraid if nothing is done, his town could suffer the same fate.
I'd hate to say it, but with the current population of about 4,000, I think like Centralia, they'd buy people out.
A grim prediction of what could happen if that fire ever reached Shenandoah Borough's borders. Now, you might remember earlier in this series, I talked about the company that first discovered the Girardville fire back in 2004, Blashot Coal. The company didn't initially respond to my questions, but after our first stories hit the air, I got a call from Chairman Greg Driscoll. Driscoll says mine fires and other environmental degradation like that are leftovers from a different era, and modern mining practices do a much better job of protecting the environment.
We put back the rock, we put back the earth, and we put all that back. And so we rebuild that from the bottom up. And we're recreating a pretty natural surface, if you will, after we leave. So without continued mining, we will lose that potential to have that reclamation done in a more cost-efficient and time-efficient way.
But Driscoll says as for the Girardville fire, the DEP is the only one that can do anything about it at this point through their Office of Abandoned Mine Reclamation. So that's where this story ends, with a to be continued. The Girardville fire is still burning just miles from this borough's borders, but we are going to continue to keep in contact with the DEP to see if they come up with a plan to finally do something about it. We're live in Shenandoah Borough tonight. Rob Manch, 69 News.